Welcome to McDonald's. What can I get you today?
Hi, she'll have the quarter pounder with cheese, extra mustard.
No pickles.
And I'll have a 10-piece chicken McNuggets.
And 2 sides of ranch, please.
We've done this before meal. Get it at McDonald's when you get 2 of your faves for just $5.
Limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. Single item at regular price.
Empire.
It was a historic season for the Cleveland Browns, and so we're going to talk to the man behind the curtain. What's up, everybody? It's Mike Jones. Thanks for coming back for another episode of the Football Jones podcast. You can read me at usatoday.com. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @ByMikeJones. And our guest today is Andrew Berry, General Manager of the Cleveland Browns. First-year General Manager, a guy who finally helped them put it all together. They had some talent. They needed some reconfiguration of their roster. He brought in Kevin Stefanski, head coach, and together they helped change the culture of that front office, of that organization, and the Browns reaped the rewards by winning 11 games, one of their most successful seasons ever. First winning season since 2002. First playoff appearance in a long time as well. And so we're going to talk to Andrew about how he, as a young guy, 33 years old, has spent some time in this league for a while now after a playing career where he played at Harvard and then had a little cup of coffee in the NFL as a player before transitioning to the talent evaluation side of the business. And so he's going to tell us all about it, about his philosophies, about his mindset, and just about how the Browns finally put it together this year. Really fascinating conversation with him, really intelligent guy. And so we're going to get to it right now. Well, first off, I want to congratulate you on this first full regular season. You guys ending the long drought, getting to the playoffs. If you could have envisioned this or mapped this out when you first took over the job, did you see this as something that was possible this year, or is it something that's going to take a couple years to get to this point?
No, I mean, really, our thought process going in is we wanted to be a competitive playoff team going in. I think realistically that's the goal for every regime in the NFL, and it was no different for us. But I think our approach was really to take it week by week and have a narrower focus, because our belief was if we could take care of the little things, really have sound process, then the outcome and the results they would really take care of themselves.
Now, you had been there before. How did that help you as you kind of navigated and assessed the way things were and what needed to change?
Yeah, I think my path back here was pretty unique because I had spent 2016 through 2018 in Cleveland, took basically like a gap year in Philly in 2019 and then came back. So I had a lot of familiarity with the organization from top down. So not just the roster, because I've been a part of acquiring most of the players that were here, but also the football operations staff, obviously had familiarity with the ownership group. And so that made my transition a little bit easier coming in, because you have enough on your to-do list as a general manager coming in already, but I knew the building, I knew who I was working with. I felt like I had a really good command, of the roster already. So those were some things that if you're going into a new situation that you're doing in addition to all the other transition work that I at least had a little bit of a shortcut with.
Gotcha. Now, you came into the NFL in 2009 with the Colts.
That's correct.
What was your 10-year plan at that point?
I don't know that I really had a 10-year plan, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah, I was very fortunate to get in. I before that, I really had never thought about working in football. I wanted to play probably like every other college football player. And my first boss was Tom Telesco, who's obviously the general manager of the Chargers now. He was the scouting director for the Colts at the time and had taken a trip to Harvard to scout, me and a couple of teammates. So that's really how I got in. I was really focused. I think everybody who gets into personnel at the end of the day would like to have an opportunity to run their own team, and I was no different. But in terms of having a strategic mapped out plan what the next 5-10 years would look like, I was really more focused on just learning my job. I was fortunate. I was working under one of two general managers who are now in the Hall of Fame with Bill Polian, a really strong front office group, and that scouting assistant role was really more like you're really getting your PhD in football, and that's really how I attacked it. I felt fortunate that I was exposed to a lot of different areas. And I just tried to soak up as much knowledge as possible.
Can you explain that a little more about getting that PhD in football? What all went into it that made that possible?
So the way I described the scouting assistant role, at least when I was in it, is you have about 15 different bosses. So yes, you are, building profile tapes for the general manager on the college side. You may be helping out with the pro staff with advances, but you're also helping out all the different ops groups. It could be something as little as holding the chains at practice, or subbing in for an equipment guy, to driving players to physicals, to helping out with some administrative tasks with the contract management team. So the neat part, and I probably didn't appreciate it enough while I was in the role, but looking back, is you end up touching a lot of different groups at lower levels and seeing how the day-to-day operations work. And it definitely serves you as you take continued steps throughout your career.
So at what point was it that you transitioned into the front office that you felt like, okay, this is the way I'm going to keep going with this?
Do you mind repeating that one more?
Yeah. What point was it that you felt like, okay, I want to continue transitioning into the front office to continue to elevate? What did you like about the job? Because some people try something out and then decide, I don't want to keep doing this. So when was it for you?
For me, I was pretty smitten during my first year with the job in the industry. Mm-hmm. I thought what was great about it, and I by no means was senior enough to be in like the big decisions during my first year, but what was neat is just the variety of challenges and problems that you would have to attack on a daily basis. And then the other neat part was just the intersection of everything coming together, like from a front office perspective, when you're making roster decisions or football operations decisions, it's not just, they're very rarely just like a scouting decision or just a contract decision or just call it a research and strategy decision. It's really at the intersection of all those different areas. And I think that's what makes it hard, but that's also what makes it fun, because it is such a challenge.
What are some of the keys to fitting all those puzzle pieces and solving those problems? Because you're one person, and that's a lot.
Yeah. So I think keys, maybe like organizationally, it's like alignment and collaboration. So I think alignment from the perspective that everyone's really has to be rowing in the same direction and understand what the football philosophy is, how the team should look and play, what the operational philosophy is in terms of how people are going to work and interact on a day-to-day basis. And the collaboration piece is, these decisions are too big and complex to just be made in a silo. And oftentimes what makes it challenging is because it touches all these different domains. And so if you don't bring enough perspectives or enough people in these different seats to the table, when ultimately you're going through a big decision, or even it doesn't even have to be a big decision, but just like normal decisions, you're probably just not going to get enough of a holistic view of the problem to make the most optimal choice for your organization.
So just like a football team on the field is about 53 guys and the coaching staff going the same way, the front office is about a team going the same direction as well.
Yeah, I actually think that's a really nice way to put it. Like when people say that football is the consummate team sport, it's not just in the locker room. It really is up and down the organization and up and down football operations.
Gotcha. When did you feel like becoming a general manager was something that was possible for you?
I think probably maybe year 4 in Indianapolis. I was very, very fortunate that at every stop, or I say almost every stop that I've been in, that I had general managers and senior executives who invested in my career and in my personal growth. And it started with Bill and Tom Telesco and Chris Polian. And then when the organization transitioned to Ryan Grigson, he played a major role in that as well, because he really took a chance on me as a 24, 25-year-old pro director that then doubled as the number 2 in contract management. And it was at that point that I really started getting more exposure to some of the higher leverage decisions that you make, at least from a roster management perspective. And that's when I was like, you know what, like I really felt like I was developing the skills, or starting to develop the skill set that would enable me to at least do the job strategically. And I'd probably say, like, from a people management perspective, I really started feeling that way, after really my first year in Cleveland in 2016.
I know you don't like to pat yourself on the back, but what is it about you that made you good at all that stuff?
I don't know that I have a great response for that, Mike. I guess I'd like to say that I was very open-minded and hardworking, because I think it's sometimes difficult for people to truly embrace and listen to perspectives that are different than their own, or even expertise that are different than their own. I think that's one. I think two, like, you have to put in work for your craft. I think that's to be, at the top of really any profession. And I think the other thing is, like, I've always tried to be a continuous learner. And I just was always interested in everything that touched the sport, like from a front office standpoint. And I'm very thankful to the number of people that, were open books to me and continue to be open books to me, like, as I continue in my career, because there's just a number of people that I've learned from along the way.
Now, there aren't a lot of general managers that look like you. Not only just because you're 33, but you're a Black man. And it's something that is frustrating for a lot of people who have those aspirations. What was it that enabled you and fueled your confidence that you could shatter, break through some of those barriers that other people have been through, and helped you get to this point right here?
Yeah, I think resiliency and perseverance is important in really any job or any profession. That's no different than here. I think it never really affected me what other people, thought of me, like, right, wrong, or indifferent. My focus had always been on, obviously doing my job as well as possible, but also, like, acquiring the skills necessary to not only be better at my job, but at where I have my long-term aspirations as well. So honestly, I think it's a little bit like a player who practices hard and then, takes a little bit of time to try and expand their skill set. I think it really is the same thing for, coaches, front office executives, in our sport. And so I really tried to take that approach, and I really operated with blinders. I never really let the outside stuff impact me, or at least impact me significantly enough to get me off track.
So diversity is something that the NFL hasn't embraced, like, maybe in word, but not in deed. But why is it so important, and how can it help an organization if they embrace diversity?
I think it goes back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier, where these are big, complex problems, which is part of the challenge and part of the fun. And ultimately, if you're a general manager or a head coach, like, you're making big decisions that can alter the trajectory of an entire organization. And in order to get those questions right, or at least right more often than not, it's important that you bring a lot of different perspectives and expertise to the table. And I think when you build a diverse football operation, not just demographically, but also in terms of experience and cognitively with people's way of thinking, I think it just is better for business, and it's better for overall decision making.
So you grew up in Bel Air, Maryland. You went to Harvard. You played football. How have your life experiences helped you as you work to build a football team?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's interesting. I think that, I look at, let's say, my time at Harvard, both as a player and a student. So time at Harvard as a player, and then a cup of coffee, with it was the Washington Redskins at the time, getting into rookie minicamp. I felt like I got a much different perspective than perhaps individuals who didn't necessarily play football at a high level. I got my master's in computer science at Harvard, so it's helped me speak multiple languages, so to speak, especially as data becomes a much bigger piece of decision making in our sport. Quite honestly, I think like my age and my race has helped in terms of perhaps being a little bit more relatable to our locker room, maybe relative to my peers. But I'd also say that even my professional experiences, like I worked under two quote unquote traditional football guy GMs in terms of Ryan Grigson and John Dorsey. I worked for the greatest general manager of all time with Bill Polian. I worked under Sashi Brown, who was at the forefront of the, really research and strategy evolution in the sport, non-traditional background. I worked for Howie Roseman, who came up in contract management. And all of those individuals had such different philosophies and skill sets. And I really felt like I was fortunate because I was able to take a little piece of all of them that has helped me relate and see things see things across the football operation spectrum that had I not had those experience, I don't think I would have been able to do.
So you're a part of an organization. I mean, you're the third Black general manager that the Haslams have hired. You guys have a really diverse staff. You've got women on fellowships and in your scouting department, in your coaching staff. You've got minorities, on this staff. You all embrace diversity. Why do you think it's something that's not more widely has been more traditionally widely accepted?
I think it's something that just it may not just be, people may not just have a natural predisposition or inclination toward it. I don't think it's something that if you asked, everyone in the NFL, that people would say, no, I'm actively against diversity. But I also do think that it does require being deliberate, just because it's easy, right? People are comfortable with what they have known and what they've experienced. And if your perspective or background or upbringing, quite honestly, is narrower in nature, it just may not be something that crosses your mind more actively. And I think that that's one thing that, I'm actually really fortunate. Our ownership group has been fantastic in that regard, whether it's on the football side or the business side. They've been really, really active in that regard, and that really trickles down from the top. But not everybody is as proactive in that space or naturally proactive in that space. So I really do think it just requires a deliberate thought that ultimately leads to deliberate action. And I think that that's probably easier for individuals once they understand, hey, it's not just important to say that, it's not just important because you can just say that you did it, but it's important because it leads to better decisions, better business, better decision making. That's why you should do it.
Gotcha. Now, I imagine you have to have a balance when you talk about analytics and all that stuff. You have to know how much to rely on and how much just regular football stuff. How do you figure out, how much of a grain of salt you take with that stuff, how much you really pound on that? Just how do you approach that?
I think it depends on two things, right? I think it depends on the problem, right? And then I also think it depends on the quality of the information. I guess maybe the way I don't know if this is the right example, but maybe the way I would think about it is, all right, if you're a pilot and you're going from Ohio to Delaware, normal environment, probably like that flight is what, maybe 90% instruments, autopilot, whatever, you name it. And we really think nothing of it. Okay, let's take that same flight and I don't know, there's engine failure or there's extreme weather on the coast or something along those lines, or an emergency situation. Okay, maybe the share of instruments versus manual use, so to speak, maybe that shifts to like 60-40, right? Because the environment and the situation is different. I don't think it's too dissimilar with the problems that you attack really in any industry, but certainly in football. There are some questions that you try and answer as a decision maker that you can rely on a heavy dose of data, especially if you have quality data at your disposal. And then there are some divisions that really require more experience, intuition, and subjectivity. So I think oftentimes people assume that there has to just be this hard and fast rule that just is a catch-all. And I don't think that's the right way to think about it. I think you just look at, hey, where can I have the most quality information possible? And quite honestly, our experiences and our observations are like, they are data at the end of the day.
Mhm.
It's more about synthesizing that based on the problem that you're attacking.
When you guys are introducing that stuff, was it difficult to get your traditional hard-nosed football guys to be receptive to the data and all that stuff?
I think and probably every industry would say that there's always a little bit of healthy conflict between, call it, traditionalists and perhaps maybe different ways of looking at problems. But I also don't think it's like everything that's introduced isn't like just this brand new thing. And it's not like we're just sticking everything in a computer to make decisions. So I think there's a little bit of this perspective that's like this black box, and that's really not the case. I think a lot of it, you want to bring the different perspectives to the table. You want healthy pushback and debate. But I think also a big part of it is communication, right? Like it should make sense. Like it should stand to reason why you're using certain pieces of information or certain inputs in a decision. And whether that's, quote unquote analytics or objective data or not, like there should be robust debate, for the hard decisions in any organization.
What would you say maybe your three biggest things or decisions that you made this year as you took over that put you guys on the path? And I know it's a team, it's a collaborative effort, but your three biggest decisions that you had to make this year that put you guys on this path to get to the playoffs for the first time in forever.
It's a good decision, Mike, and you're going to hate my answer, but like that can be for someone else to decide or write. Like, I mean, we've done a lot of things over the past year together as a group that have put us on this path. I just think that's not one I'm going to answer, just quite frankly.
Okay. Now someone did tell me that you had to be very measured when you came in there, because some people come into a place and just make a lot of changes for the sake of making changes because they want their fingerprints on it. But you had to know, okay, what do I not mess up? What do I massage? And how did you go about figuring out, what to change, what not to change?
So I think it's actually a perspective that I took from, so talking about experiences. So I was in Indianapolis from the transition from Bill Pulliam to Ryan Grigson. I was in Cleveland for the transition from Sashi Brown to John Dorsey. And then I had even been on the other side of Cleveland when I was transitioning in as the new, scouting director. And then on the other side in Philly when I was transitioning as the new, head of ops. Mm-hmm. And so seeing it as the incoming person twice, and then also seeing it as like the holdover like group twice, I had learned a lot of things where it's like, all right, when I was getting a new boss, here are some of the things that I thought that person did really well. Here are some of the things that, just kind of ended up rubbing people the wrong way, right, wrong, or indifferent. Or in my first and second transitions, like, okay, here are the things that I thought that I did well. Here's some of the things that I was like, you know what, if I could go back and do it again, I would have changed X, Y, and Z. So like those 4 transition experiences, that actually really helped informed how I would handle things here, because it's like, it's no different than if you're taking over a roster. There are good players, there are good systems in place, and there are some things that obviously need to change. And I think part of it is like taking enough time to learn like what actually happened, because I think it's easy to just go into a place and just like, hey, we're just going to do this my way or the highway. This worked where I was, like, I'm just going to toss everything out and we're going to start from scratch. And I don't think that's the right mentality, because every organization is different. So like what worked in Philly or Indianapolis may not work in Cleveland in some areas. And then also just the people are different. Like they have different skill sets, different expertise, and they may have some things, even in organizations that struggled, may have some things or some parts of their operation that they do better than any other team in the league. And I think it's important when you go into a place with like a fresh eyes, fresh perspectives, to try and actually just like assess the people, the system, the processes, obviously the roster that's in place, and try and keep as much of the good as you can, as long as it's like philosophically aligned with what you believe. And I think the other thing is there is a cost to transition, right? So I'll give you an example. Our scouting system. It could be easy to like walk in and say, hey, look, here's what I would like to do in terms of a grading scale, and then call it 25 people change for you in the middle of a draft process. I don't really think that's smart. It's easier for one person to adjust and really translate as opposed to 25. So that's what we did until we got to the offseason. We made a couple of tweaks, but even with those tweaks, it's like, imagine you're a new coach coming in to teach a quarterback. There are probably some things that they're familiar with in their playbook previously that they like, that if you don't have to reteach it or relearn it, it's probably better for the player. So like even with our new grading system, there are some things that we kept from the old version because it was like, look, I really don't care about, like, so for instance, I really don't care about like the colors that we use for the distinctions of the players. If people don't have to relearn that, fine, we'll keep that out. Like I'll learn it. It's like, it's not a big deal. So like, that's maybe a small example of what I tried to do in every area of football operations.
This is a copycat league. You know, when Sean McVay came and had a lot of success, everybody wanted the young, hotshot offensive coordinator to be their next head coach. Have you felt pressure like, okay, I've got to do my job because I'm opening doors for people of color, for young people, for people with non-traditional approaches and diverse backgrounds? Have you felt that at all?
Not really. Like, I mean, that's really more for everybody else. Like I just really focus on doing my best in my role every day, and then really serving the people that I work with on a daily basis across football operations. You know, I think the rest of that will take care of itself. I mean, I think I have a high enough expectations for what we can be organizationally that's really the focus of my time, energy, and thoughts.
Gotcha. Now, you also talked about how you had general managers who were invested in you and developed you. What is your approach like in bringing up people behind you?
Yeah, I want as many people as possible within our football operations, whether it's in the football front office side, you know, having the opportunity to run their teams at some point in the future, or on the coaching side, like having people that become head coaches. And so from our perspective, we actually have an individual written development plans across all the different football operations domains for every employee. Because I think it's easy for people to talk about, yeah, we develop. But like, how are you actually systematically doing it? If we have a development plan for a player, why wouldn't we do that for our staff? And so that's something that we're really, really heavily invested in, and really organizationally we have been. And one other thing, Mike, I actually have a 3:40 call.
Right, yeah, I've got my timer running here from Peter too. That was my last one. I was going to talk about just the development and how you bring people along. So I really appreciate your time. It's been great insight, and much continued success to you guys, not just this year, but going forward as well.
I appreciate that, Mike.
All right, thanks. You have a good one.
Man, you too.
Okay, thanks so much to Andrew Barry for spending some time with us, giving insight on just what a big year this was for the Browns. You know, like I said, 11 wins. They hadn't won 11 games in a season since 1994. And this was only the second time they made it to the playoffs since 2002. They had one 10-win season in 2007, but 11 wins. This was a big deal for them. And getting Kevin Stefanski in place to help develop and groom Baker Mayfield to live up to his potential was really huge. So it's going to be interesting to see how they continue to build on this season. I tell you what, this is going to be an interesting weekend here. As you know, the Browns fell short against the Kansas City Chiefs, so now it's the Chiefs and the Bills in the AFC Championship game. All eyes are going to be on Patrick Mahomes. Left that game with what they thought was a concussion, and they'll see how he continues to recover and respond. Right now, there's no guarantee that he will play on Sunday, and that would be a big loss if he is not able to play. Really, I don't know that they can hang with Buffalo without Patrick Mahomes. And so we'll see as the Chiefs try to continue their defense of the Super Bowl. In the NFC, you've got the Green Bay Packers hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who just knocked off the Saints, sending Drew Brees into retirement, we believe. Tom Brady playing in his 14th conference championship game. Tell you what, that guy, if you don't think he's the GOAT, then we can't have a conversation. But just amazing. But they also had some great play from their defense that wound up being game-changing. And so here the Bucs are now, the deepest they've been in the postseason since 2002 when they won the Super Bowl. Can they keep it going, or will the blistering pace that Aaron Rodgers is playing at and that home field advantage really hamper them? We shall see. But I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys are safe and healthy. Thanks again for listening. Once again, you can read me at usatoday.com. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @ByMikeJones. And please do me a favor, share this podcast with your friends. And I will talk to you guys again next time.